Hi there, my name is Alan Lamont. This is the last in a series on the Knights Templar, the secret history, and I'm going to really explain everything that I do know about this to give you understanding. Now, there are so many organisations involved in the New World Order that it's very difficult for people to get to the real conspiracy because there's so many front organisations. Now, the Templars are the crown. Let me explain that. They are the crown. You have three cities that govern the earth. I reveal that in a lot of my work. You have the Vatican City State, which is the crown corporation of the Vatican. Then you have the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. That governs America. It's a sovereign city-state, separate from the Constitution and the Congress and the governors and the presidents. It's separate from any form of government in America. That's Templar Crown territory. Then you have London. You have the Crown Inner City Corporation of London, ruled by the Temple Bar, of course, from the Temple Church territory of the Inner City of London. That's the structure here. But when you look at Britain, Britain is still an empire. It's not a commonwealth. Look at this picture here of the flag of Great Britain. Templar Red Cross. And it fits exactly into the Babylonian sun wheel at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican, around the obelisk of Nimrod. You'll notice that the vast majority of these Commonwealth nations that were colonised by the British Empire have Templar flags. You say, well, that's because they were under the sovereignty of the monarchy of Britain. Not so, because it covers the entire area of Europe. You know, the vast majority that were not under the power of the crown have also Templar crosses. The Templars controlled the whole Civil War in America. When you understand the Templars of the Jesuits, it makes sense. Behind the monarchy, you have the Inner City Corporation of London, and that is ruled over by the Jesuit provincials, not the Lord Mayor. There's two Lord Mayors. There's the Lord Mayor, obviously at the moment, you know, Boris Johnson. But then you have the Mayor of the Inner City Corporation of London. He doesn't control it. He just is an overseer and administrator of all of these liver companies and all of these guilds and all of these Masonic groups that are at the top. And the reason why they're created is really a firewall. It's just to make sure that no one can, you know, have any power, because they are the ones that appoint the leaders in Parliament from various universities called the London School of Economics. They really oversee the political system in London itself. Westminster is a front. It's got no power. It makes no decisions whatsoever. It's the Jesuit provincials that govern the Inner City Corporation of London. They're the ones that have the power. You have the same thing in America. Obviously, it's different in Washington, but you have the Jesuits of Rome, and the District of Columbia is in Maryland, you know. That's right. Around the area of Jesuit Georgetown University. And so the Jesuits control the CFR. You do have shadow governments in every nation. For instance, let me go back to America very quick. You have the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Okay, that is the government. That's the name for the British government. The Royal Institute of International Affairs. But of course, the royal monarchy, the bloodline, the Saxe-Coburg British bloodline, does not control the Royal Institute of International Affairs from Chatham House. It's the Jesuit provincial. That's his government. That's the government of the United States. Not Westminster, not the House of Lords, and certainly not any cabinet of any puppet prime minister in Great Britain. Next we have America. You have the Council on Foreign Relations. That's the government. That's the shadow government. That's the real government of the United States government. And they just bring their high masons and their Jesuit alumni into public office to be vice president, president. Really, they're just fronts, really, for the Jesuit government, really. But understand the Templars. Understand, don't get confused with that. Just understand that they are Knights Templars. That's who runs the world. That's who's in control. Very clearly. I mean, all you have to do is look at pictures of the coinage of the Knights Templar. I'll put a picture on here so you can see this. And, you know, you see that they have the skull. And you see that even Francis, you know, Borgia, and even, you know, Ignatius Loyola are holding the skull. You see it in Nazi Germany. You see it in the Skull and Bones in Yale. You see it all across the earth, really. The skull is a symbol for the Templars. It's a symbol of revenge. It's a symbol of revenge. That's what it is. You know, it's a vendetta. You know, it's a symbol of revenge. They will destroy every government. They will destroy all resistance. They will be masters. They will rule over the world. So when they're holding that skull, they're really portraying, you know, their vengeance. But anyway, it's a sign of the Templars. That's why you see it on the Jesuit coins. You also have the IHS symbol on the Jesuit coins, and you know, obviously on the Templar coins. You see it there, long before the creation of the Jesuit order. But that is who rules the world. It's the Knights Templars. So I thought I'd bring these videos. I've done 3 now, and just to really explain to people exactly what is really going on, you know, and who's in control, because people get confused. They find out it's not the Zionists, they find out it's not the Masons, and they find out it's actually the Jesuits, under orders to their Black Pope, the superior Jesuit general, and then they find out that they control the monarchies and they control the Vatican knighthoods all through Jesuit provincials, and then people find out it's the Templars, and then they get really confused, you know, because the Templars are really the ones that are in control, and they do work with the Catholic monarchies. This is called the Holy Alliance. They've made that agreement. They can't resist the power of the Jesuits. They'll be assassinated, overthrown, the bloodlines will be wiped out. That's the way it is. History's proved that. History's proved that. And the Jesuits don't serve Rome. They don't serve the Pope. That was just diversion in order to receive the papal bull for the creation of the Society of Jesus. We see from the very beginning the Jesuits, you know, their intrigue and their espionage really to infiltrate the Vatican, control the cardinals. But of course, the papal bloodlines were working with the Jesuits. They had control over the conclave, and you know, they would elect the popes of Rome, and any that would defy them, they were actually removed from Rome, imprisoned, or just poisoned, really. So, you know, the conspiracy goes back over 1,000 years. People think the Vatican was destroyed a couple of 100 years ago. No, certainly not. Certainly not. There was always infiltration there by the papal bloodlines. There was always infiltration. But regarding the papacy, you see, if you destroy the Vatican, they all lose their power. The papal bloodlines have no power. That's right, they've no power. They receive the power through the Vatican. That's the truth. The Vatican knighthoods would lose their power, you see, because they hide under the cover of Christianity. The Templars would have lost their power, so what they did is went underground and thought, okay, you know, payback's coming, you know, we'll destroy the Vatican, we'll destroy your, you know, royal bloodlines. In fact, we'll wipe out your bloodlines, and we will raise up, and we will create the Society of Jesus, called the Society of Jesus, the Compania, Knights of the Virgin, and we will infiltrate the Vatican, and then we will take over the popes, and then we will take over the cardinals, and then we will wage a war of revenge against all the monarchies and governments that have sought to destroy us. Once they'd done that, then they really created the Illuminati to infiltrate all the governments across the entire earth, and then to bring their counter-reformation against all Protestants and Jews, ultimately bringing a world war that will result in the building of the third rebuilt Jewish temple. You see, it's Vatican Knights that control the world. It's the Vatican Knighthoods. Pope Benedict was a Knight of Malta, you know. Look at all the popes over the last, you know, 50, 60 years. They've all been High Masons or Knights of Malta. That's all they are. Trained by the Templars, trained by the Jesuits. Same with the cardinals. They're all Vatican Knights. All you have to do is look at King John Carlos of Spain, and you know, he is equestrian order. He's a High Templar. He's a Knight of Malta. He's Order of the Garter. He's Order of the Golden Fleece. You see, they're all Vatican Knights. America is under the power of the crown, in the sense that you see the presidents go to Queen Elizabeth, for instance. Herbert Walker Bush was knighted into the Order of the Bath. It's an order of chivalry under the British Empire, and so was Reagan. You see, Nelson Mandela, as soon as he was released from prison, he went to the British Crown, of course, and was knighted into the Knights of Malta, because the Queen is a dame of the Knight of Malta, and Knights of St. John, that is, of Jerusalem. We see Mugabe, we see all of these leaders are Vatican Knights or High Jesuits. So, I'm not saying they're all Templars. Of course they're not all Templars, and of course they're not all High Masons, or High Jesuits, or High Vatican Knights. They'll be one or the other. They can't be all, So there is a structure here. Let me just say, within the Templar organisation, there's not many that know this truth. Right? Okay? Because you have a Masonic Templar organisation. Let me explain what I'm really saying. Okay, within Masonry, you have many High Knight Templars, but they don't understand that literally the Templars do control Masonry. They still exist. They control the Jesuits. The Jesuits wrote the high degrees. The Jesuits are really just a front for the Templars, and so on and so on. It's a deep conspiracy, and most Masons won't know this. It's the truth, It's the same with the Knights of Columbus. It's the same with the Knights of Malta. Even the Jesuit order. The vast majority of Jesuits that staff the universities and alumni structure, they don't understand that Templars are the Jesuits. That's for those at the high levels of the Jesuit Curia in Rome, and the Church of the Jesuit. They know that. And the provincials, of course, they govern the cardinals and bishops. So there's not many people that are privy to this information, and there's not many people bringing it out, but it is the truth. So, sometimes when you change your position, people get really confused and think, well, wait a moment, it's like you said Adolfo Nicholas was the Black Pope. You've been pushing up hard for 2 years. Now you're saying that Pope Francis is the Black Pope, and people think, well, wait, you're changing what you're saying. Well, of course, because we're all learning. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to go deeper into history, and you've got to go behind all of the different, front organisational groups to get to the real controllers, to understand who they really are. And they have created so many fronts that it's very difficult. So people just stop at one door and think, well, that's it, that's it. But they're being blocked by diversion. You see, you need to open that door and look who's behind it, and look to the power that's above them. That's the truth. It takes time, but it's worth it, because, this conspiracy is being exposed on the internet, and there's many researchers that are doing this. You have Eric Jon Phelps, Craig Oxley, you have other websites known as the Babylon Watch, you have the Avenue of Light. There's so many of them, and each of them will go into a different area, and it's really an amazing thing that's taken place. This anti-Vatican movement is really, it's really turned a corner. It started to slow down about a year and a half ago. YouTube channels began to be shut down. Real big time suppression and attack going on from the CIA and NSA, really, against people that even had their own websites. There was just suppression. There was a smear campaign, on the internet, to smear those that were pioneering, leading this anti-Vatican movement. But recently I found that there's been another wave of people coming in, and people want to find out about the Jesuits, and people want to know about the Black Pope, and people want to understand. So I believe it's going to take off again. I believe there's going to be a second wave come through the anti-Vatican movement. But this time it's going to reach, thousands upon thousands more people. And there's people that God is raising up. There's people that are, awake. Let me just say, I don't just look at things at face value. Like Adolphus Nicholas, I thought, well, he's the Black Pope. I thought that for a long time. But when Pope Francis came along, it was obvious that, here's a man who's not just the Jesuit provincial. This man is the Jesuit general. And I won't explain that now, because I've explained it in other work. You can look at it in one of my videos called The Black Pope, My Revelation. I explain how I believe that Pope Francis is the Jesuit general. But conclusion, the Knights Templars are the Jesuits. They are the Illuminati. They're all one group. All one group. And they control all governments through the Crown City corporations. And everyone below that is just low-level operatives, low-level conscious conspirators like the Zionists and the Masons, and all of these low-level groups like the Bilderbergs and the Club of Rome, they're just merely put out for diversion, to divert and deflect attention away from the Templars. They control the Vatican. They control the one world government.